Hollywood will run out of actors before the MCU ever stops announcing new characters. The latest heroes and villains who might join the ever-expanding roster are the subject of persistent rumors, and each one is just as thrilling as the last. One of these rumors may have significant ramifications for a war that fans have long desired to see on the big screen. Though the Avengers versus the Justice League is unlikely to ever happen, we might be seeing the next best thing. Let's talk more about it in today's video. Starting off with rumors around the newest ensemble. The MCU is said to have grown outdated in comparison to the satirical and violent show The Boys. We've all had our viewing tastes updated after we got to see Butcher violently murdering Supes on screen. And now we can't go back to seeing things like She-Hulk twerking in her office. But there are indications that Marvel Studios may draw inspiration from the comics to generate the action that people are dying for. The theory that the Squadron Supreme might be joining the MCU has started to gain momentum, although it should be taken with a huge spoonful of salt. Websites like Cinestealth have stated that the group is going to be heavily featured in the next phases of the MCU. Most importantly, the speculations claim that not only will the team be created in a style reminiscent of the comics, but also that their presentation will be influenced by The Boys. It goes without saying that the Squadron's gritty and political style, together with the stunning and outrageous moments of the topical comedy, may definitely help it stand out from the other Marvel superhero teams. Ironically, the MCU could gain from The Boys' success by gaining access to the meta market as consumers seek a more realistic narrative that isn't hesitant to point out the limitations of the genre. Marvel can easily capitalize on the show and introduce the team to more adult audiences. Additionally, the style of the Prime series has a certain inventive and contemporary quality that might give Marvel some breathing room as they're sorely running out of cliched characters. Let's look at the origins of the Squadron Supreme. The Squadron Supreme of America was an early offshoot of the Squadron Sinister, which battled Earth's most powerful heroes in the Avengers comic issue number 69 in 1963. The Squadron Supreme themselves didn't make their comic book debut until issues 85 and 86 of the Avengers in 1971. The gang has been portrayed as darker versions of a variety of well-known comic book heroes, occasionally passing for nice guys even though they don't have that early Sinister label. That idea hasn't yet been explored in the MCU, but it's really helped to build the fan base for The Boys. The Squadron Supreme was initially presented in the multiverse, where they were tasked with defending Earth 712 in a manner similar to how the Avengers guarded Earth 616. But over the years, the Squadron would appear in other forms as well. In reality, several iterations of the crew have been published, frequently from whole different worlds. Although their roster might slightly change each time, the corruption of their objectives in more recent interpretations is more significant for their MCU future. Up next, the team members. There are 7 original members of the team, who frequently come from Rocket Central and Squadron City and are linked to the Squadron in most iterations. Aquaman is parodied in the team. The aquatic member is instead known as the Amphibian. The intergalactic hero who uses the Power Prism's abilities is Dr. Spectrum. Often regarded as the group's leader, Hyperion is an overpowering natural force who is typically an Eternal. Power Princess is a utopian warrior with limitless potential, whereas Nighthawk is a human vigilante with street-level skills. The Whizzer is the group's fastest Skrull, while the Skrullian Skymaster is a more knowledgeable shape-shifting Skrull. There are undoubtedly similarities between these creations and some of the most well-known characters in the mainstream Marvel universe, but those who pay careful attention will see even more surprising connections to the DC universe. Moving on to the Squadrons in comparison to the Justice League. The Squadron Supreme is actually designed to be a darker representation of the Justice League. For the purpose of imitating one of the most well-known colleagues of DC's elite unit, each of the original members was carefully chosen. The entire reason for this was so the writers could make them fight against the Avengers without having to overlap the universes of Marvel and DC. Their Aquaman is Amphibian, while their Green Lantern is Dr. Spectrum. The group's Superman is Hyperion, while their Batman is Nighthawk. The squad is completed by Whizzer's interpretation of the Flash, Skrullian Skymaster's representation of Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter's representation of Power Princess. Each of the power sets for which DC's League was renowned in some way also distinguished well with some of the varied characters of the Avengers, such as Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow. Making a squad that parodies both the DC and Marvel universe is an idea that The Boys has also had great success with. It's difficult to look at the Deep, for example, without thinking of Aquaman or Namor, and Homelander is unmistakably a tribute to Superman. When compared to the originals, each iteration is distorted, imitating, but never directly replicating. This is the reason why the show was so successful, as it gave us a view into how much power could corrupt most people. More on the heroes being reimagined. Although the Squadron Supreme may have begun as a group that was essentially good, later versions were corrupted in order to escalate the war with the Earth's mightiest heroes of 616, because Marvel had the potential to form an evil Justice League. Strangely enough, a recent Marvel Comics story actually made the Squadron Supreme more important than ever for the main reality. What viewers know about Earth 616 before the Heroes Reborn arc was drastically rewritten. Agent Coulson intended to use the Cosmic Cube to construct a universe that he could control while under the spell of Mephisto. The Squadron Supreme took the role of the Avengers, and in many ways, they served as enforcers. They were being controlled remotely to carry out the wishes of those who formed their society. The Squadron was introduced into the main universe at the end of the novel, but it also centered on them as fascist rulers who maintained order among humanity through the use of violence. This narrative could be carried out so well in the MCU with the introduction of Kang. Moving forward with Loki Season 2. Rumor has it that the Squadron Supreme will first appear alongside Loki in Season 2. Their introduction might simply come from a multiversal adventure, just like their original origins in the comics. There's also a theory that they're truly Kang the Conqueror's enforcers, foot soldiers in his army that maintains order in the universes he rules. That would be consistent with how the Squadron Supreme was used in Heroes Reborn, but with Kang acting as a potent new force. The devastating conclusion of Loki's first season featured the startling revelation that Kang is already in charge of the Time Variance Authority, which was supported by an imposing statue that was casting a shadow over the Asgardian god. Could it be that, in the present timeline, he already employs the Squadron to further his goals now that his government is in place? Next, fan castings for the Squadron's roles. There are a handful of possible paths that Marvel might take when casting the Squadron Supreme in the MCU. There's unquestionably a chance to capitalize on the absurdity of the multiverse and perhaps even score a few fan castings in the process. Disney and Marvel might pick some well-known actors for the cast in a playful move. Henry Cavill is reportedly being considered for the Hyperion role, and we have to say he certainly fits the part. But we don't know how true this could be, as he's also rumored to be in talks for the role of Captain Britain. Naturally, Cavill's selection as Hyperion opens the door to a host of other creative options. What would be really crazy is if Marvel decides to have a little fun with the casting of the Squadron. They could bring in Grant Gustin as Whizzer, Gal Gadot as Power Princess, and even Ryan Reynolds as Dr. Spectrum. Finally, the MCU's future with Squadron Supreme. What would it mean for the Squadron Supreme's future in the MCU if they were introduced alongside Kang in his most evil form? They might act as muscle for him, as he serves as the next phase's main antagonist. Fortunately, the Squadron can step up for Kang, as the Avengers will need someone to punch in the meantime. Marvel has frequently employed antagonists who are mirror images of Earth's most powerful heroes. Or perhaps they've favored enormous armies of robots and aliens without faces. A different kind of threat is posed by the Squadron Supreme, which teases a reality that might someday take hold if superheroes adopt a more oppressive method of maintaining order. It's a wise decision to introduce the multiversal crew, but they should have a better role than just appearing in Loki. That's a wrap for this video, and thanks for watching. What did you think of the Squadron Supreme, and how soon would you like to see their debut in the MCU? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.